On November 17th, 1981, a scaffold collapsed inside a building under construction in Manila, sending workers plunging into freshly poured wet concrete on the floors below. The First Lady of the Philippines, Imelda Marcos, was informed of the collapse. She ordered construction to continue. The 168 workers who fell into that concrete were never removed, and they are still inside the building today. This is the Manila Film Center, located on Roxas Boulevard in Pasay City, in the cultural center of the Philippines complex on the edge of Manila Bay. A grand Greco-Roman Colosseum rising above the waterfront, its arched facade and massive columns designed to signal that the Philippines had arrived as a cultural capital of Asia. The woman behind it was Imelda Marcos. She was the wife of President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., the self-appointed cultural ambassador of the Philippines and the most powerful unelected figure in the country. By the early 1980s, Imelda had already spent years building monuments to herself and to her vision of what the Philippines could project to the world. She had commissioned the Cultural Center of the Philippines, the Folk Arts Theater, and the Philippine International Convention Center. She was building a version of Manila that would compete with the grandest capitals in the world. In 1981, she decided what that vision needed next was a film festival. Not a modest regional film festival, an international one that would rival Cannes, one that would bring directors, producers, and film stars from across the globe to Manila and announce that Asia had a new cultural headquarters. The Manila International Film Festival would open in January 1982. It would be held in a brand new, purpose-built film center that did not yet exist. And it would open on time, regardless of what the construction required. The deadline was fixed, the design was commissioned, and the builders were given 77 days to complete a structure that would normally take years. To understand how 168 workers end up entombed in concrete, you have to understand what 77 days actually means on a construction site of this scale. Construction of a major public building is not a single continuous operation. It is a sequence, foundation first, then the structural frame, then the floors, then the walls, then the systems, then the finishes. Each phase depends on the previous phase having reached sufficient strength. Concrete does not reach its design strength overnight. A freshly poured slab needs days to cure before it can support the load of the next pour above it. Structural columns need weeks before they can carry the weight of the floors they are meant to hold. The sequence is not arbitrary. It is dictated by the physics of the materials. Compressing a multi-year construction sequence into 77 days means running phases simultaneously that are designed to be sequential. It means pouring new concrete above concrete that has not yet cured to the strength the pour above it requires. It means erecting scaffolding faster than the supporting structure beneath it can be certified as ready to carry it. It means taking a system designed to be built carefully in verified stages and running all of those stages at once because a deadline set by a First Lady is not negotiable. The scaffold that collapsed on November 17th, 1981 was not a random accident. It was the inevitable output of a construction schedule built around a party that was more important than the people building the venue for it. This is the original sin of the Manila Film Center, not the collapse itself. The decision made weeks before the collapse to impose a timeline that made the collapse a matter of when rather than if. Nightmare Number 1 arrived at approximately midnight on November 17, 1981. The upper floors of the film center were under active construction. Night shifts had been running continuously to meet the deadline. Workers were on scaffolding multiple stories above the ground floor when a formwork structure, the temporary wooden and steel framework used to hold wet concrete in place while it sets, gave way. The collapse sent workers falling into the floors below. Some fell onto hard surfaces. Others fell directly into wet concrete pours that had not yet set. The concrete was fresh. It was deep. Workers who fell into it could not free themselves. The site foreman sent word to Imelda Marcos. Nightmare number 2 is the decision. And it is the one that turned a construction accident into something the Philippines would never fully process. The standard response to a major construction accident is to halt work, account for every worker, and deploy rescue operations to recover the injured and the dead. Concrete that has not yet set can be cleared. Workers can be pulled out. The timeline suffers. The costs increase. The festival might be delayed. Imelda Marcos refused to halt construction. According to multiple accounts from workers, survivors, and officials who were present, the order came back from the First Lady directly. Construction was to continue. The festival deadline held. The concrete was allowed to set around the workers who had fallen into it. By the time any attempt was made to account for what had happened, the concrete had cured. The workers were no longer retrievable. They were part of the structure. The exact number of workers who died in the collapse and were sealed in the concrete has been disputed for decades by the government and confirmed by survivors and workers who were present. The figure that has persisted in the historical record, the one that matches the accounts of workers who witnessed the collapse and the subsequent decision, is 168. Nightmare number 2 confirmed. The decision that turned an accident into an entombment was made by one person in one phone call in the middle of the night because a film festival was more important than the people who were building the room to hold it. If a First Lady ordering construction to continue over the bodies of 168 workers so a party could open on schedule is the kind of story this channel covers without looking away. Subscribe right now. We go where the official record stops. Every week. Nightmare number 3. The building opened anyway. The Manila International Film Festival launched in January 1982, less than 2 months after the collapse. Imelda Marcos attended. International guests arrived. Films were screened. The building that contained 168 workers in its concrete was inaugurated as a cultural landmark and celebrated as proof of what the Philippines could build when it set its ambitions high enough. The workers who had built it, and the workers who were still inside it, were not mentioned in any official statement. No death toll was acknowledged. No investigation was announced. The government's position, maintained for years afterward, was that the collapse had resulted in far fewer deaths than what the workers and their families described, and that the bodies had been recovered before the concrete set. The families of the missing knew differently. The workers who had been on site that night knew differently. For the duration of the Marcos era, that knowledge had no official place to go. Nightmare number 3 confirmed. The building was celebrated, while the evidence of what it cost was sealed inside its floors. Nightmare number 4 is the one that outlasted the Marcos government, the People Power Revolution, and every administration that followed. Ferdinand Marcos was ousted in 1986. The Marcos era ended. The records of what had happened at the Film Center did not disappear with it. Survivors spoke. Workers who had been present gave accounts. Families of the missing provided testimony. Investigations were opened, stalled, reopened, and stalled again. The building itself was examined. Structural assessments were conducted. The question of what was inside the concrete, whether 168 bodies or fewer or more, was never definitively resolved through official channels. And through all of it, the building continued to stand on Roxas Boulevard. It has been repurposed multiple times since 1982. It was used for religious ceremonies by a spiritual group. It was later converted into a casino. It has been proposed for demolition. It has been proposed for heritage preservation. The Cultural Center of the Philippines, which manages the complex, has at various points neither confirmed nor denied the accounts of what is inside the structure. The workers who built it with their lives have never been officially accounted for. Their families have never received official recognition. The building that required their deaths to open on schedule has outlasted every political era that followed the decision to leave them inside it. Nightmare number 4 confirmed. The worst decision was not just that the construction continued. It is that the construction that continued is still standing, and the decision has never been formally answered for. The Manila Film Center is not the world's most expensive building. It is not the tallest. It does not hold a Guinness record for structural ambition or engineering achievement. What it holds is something no other building in modern history holds: the confirmed accounts of over 100 construction workers who fell into wet concrete, whose families reported them missing, and whose remains were sealed inside a public building that was inaugurated 6 weeks later. The building that was supposed to announce the Philippines as a cultural capital of Asia announced something else entirely. It announced what a government is capable of when a deadline is more important than the people bound by it, when a party is more important than the workers building the venue, when the concrete setting is allowed to become the answer to the question of what to do about the bodies inside it. The Manila Film Center still stands on Roxas Boulevard. The concrete is still there. The workers are still inside it. And the First Lady who gave the order lived until 2019, was returned to the Philippines and buried with full military honors, and was never charged with a crime in connection with the events of November 17, 1981. The building is still standing. The decision is still unanswered. The concrete does not forget.